good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball, with plenty to talk about. Chelsea run riot at Stamford Bridge, some glorious goals, and rumour has it there was a North-West derby full of passion and excitement at Old Trafford. Shall we?
Of course.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. So, in today's short, sharp episode, we are going to be looking at all the results of the WSL this weekend, as well as the table standings. We'll run over the results in the Championship, where it's back to bonkers. We will chat through Sophie's standout moment of the week. So this is your reminder, Sophie. And finally, we will look ahead to the Champions League games that we will be attending during the week. So, if you haven't already, make sure that you are subscribed, liking on YouTube, on your podcast apps, leave a review if you're enjoying the pod, message us on social medias, let us know what you'd like us to chat about or your thoughts on any of these games. We'd love to hear from you. Firstly, I have to start with an apology for not putting out our Champions League pod midweek. You will probably have seen from our channels that our Madrid trip didn't end quite the way we'd hoped it would. I was very unwell and we could hardly put out a half-completed episode. I think by the time I got to half-time of the Chelsea match, I was in no fit state really to be doing anything. So apologies for that. We will make sure to bring you with us.
I think also something else to mention is you might have noticed a change in backdrop. We are in a different place today, so we've tried to design it so it's like being at home, but not quite.
Yes, if you're watching us on YouTube, that is why we're in a different place. If you're not watching us on YouTube, what are you doing? Come along, come over, see what it looks like. Try and spot some of the things we have in the background. Okay, shall we chat WSL this weekend? There were a couple of nice goals that I think are worth having a Google, having a look on Twitter to find them. We will touch on some of those. Here are the results. We had Chelsea 5, Liverpool 1. Hat-trick from Lauren James, Aggie Beaver-Jones, new skin and an own goal from Carter. Everton 2, Bristol 2, Piemonte, Finnegan and Rogers and Thestrup scoring those goals. Brighton 0, Arsenal 3, Stina Ballerina Blackstenius, Ford and Monaghan getting the goals there. West Ham 2, Aston Villa 3, Asai, Evans, Patton, Leon and Daly getting the goals. Leicester 1, Spurs 1, Cayman and Bizet there. Manchester United 1, Manchester City 3, Zellum, Roord, Hemp and Shaw. So, lots of goals again this week, but we're going to start with Chelsea against Liverpool, 5-1. We were at this one. I was enjoying it from a box. You were writing, so a little bit more stressful for you. But Lauren James with an inspired performance. After the first half, it didn't feel like this game would end 5-1, but LJ had other ideas.
Yeah, I think the first half was pretty tight. Obviously, Chelsea were in control, I think, and they had the chances and the possession. But I think Liverpool were keeping themselves in it. They equalised immediately after falling behind. They were showing quite a lot of resilience. I think it was the left side of Chelsea that was causing particular problems, especially, that link up between Charles and James down that left was just causing Koivisto and Bonner all kinds of problems in that Liverpool back line. But they were staying in it, and even though they went in behind, you felt that probably, given on past history with Liverpool this season, they could probably make a go of it in the second half. Matt Beer took off Hubinger for Kearns at the start of the second half, which I thought was interesting because I think she wasn't having a particularly great game, but she's been their best player, I think, so far this season, Marie. So it was a bit of an interesting one. I think it was to probably provide more attacking support to the front line, but it was still interesting to change it at that stage when they were still quite tight in it. And I think they just fell off in the second half, and Chelsea were ruthless and clinical and put in the kind of performance that, didn't look like a team who'd been playing midweek in Madrid. It was, Lauren James just loves the big stage. That's where big players come to play. Stamford Bridge, it's her home. She just, you can tell the smile on her face that she just loves to perform there, and she ran riot. And the two finishes, there were two really trademark finishes where she takes a touch and then draws it home. And then I really liked the instinctive finish of Johanna writing Cannery's cross.
Nearly her first touch, wasn't it?
It was Cannery's first touch. She'd just come on the pitch, but it was just that sort of instinctive hit from about 10 yards, 8 yards out to send it home. And I thought that just kind of summed up the kind of game she was having. But it wasn't just on the ball, it was off the ball as well. She was working really hard for the team. And I think that's been something that's really progressed with Lauren James in recent, under Emma Hayes, certainly. I don't think she ever... I think sometimes when she was younger or when she was at Manchester United, she sometimes neglected those sort of defensive responsibilities. And given that Emma Hayes likes to defend from the front and use that pressing of like the Sam Kerrs of the world, I think watching her off the ball movement was really good.
Yeah, she was superb and spoke really well. I don't think I've ever heard her speak so much to the media post-match, but she said everything she was doing was for Emma Hayes, which was very touching because I'm sure the news was a big shock to her. It's interesting that you mentioned Koivisto, actually, because I did find myself during some of those Lauren James goals thinking she's completely out of position. She's too high up the pitch, and I think there was times where they were caught, I think, out of position because of that quick turn from Chelsea.
I think that's the problem with, well, not the problem, it's worked pretty well for Liverpool, but they do push their wing backs up pretty high. And it means that when you get in behind them and you have the space to run, like Chelsea did on Saturday, it can be lethal. Like, it works because it pins back. It can pin you back. But when they break through your press, I think that's the problem. It's what Arsenal failed to do in that first game of the season. It's
actually something Emma Hayes identified pre-match, was that 6 that Liverpool can kind of push you back with. And obviously they planned for it, and it worked out very well. Post-match, though, Emma Hayes spoke about scheduling, understandably. This was Chelsea's 3rd game in 6 days. They played in Madrid on a Wednesday night. They'd gotten back at 4 a.m. in the morning on the Thursday, and then had to play a 1:30 kickoff on the Saturday, which is crazy. It's an important point she raised, and I think it's particularly important when you've just come off the back of a really dominant win to still be highlighting those issues, because, you know, sometimes when it comes off the back of a loss, people can accuse you of sour grapes. But she also touched on the fact that it was something Jonas Eidevall raised last season, so it's not just about Chelsea. If you haven't seen or heard her comments, here's what she had to say.
As much as you get accustomed to it, it does 3 games in 6 days. Of course I'm going to hammer TV and the league today, because I feel like nobody really understands how hard that is to do. In fact, you guys know, you've been travelling with us for 3 games in 6 days. I feel like we're the only team in Europe, and yet we're the only association that doesn't help its team in Europe. Spain do, France do, Germany do, but we don't. And that for me is like disappointing, working against ourselves, because to your point, Charlotte, there's a rule in place that says, oh, you can put a TV game at 1:30 on a Saturday because they've had 2 days. There's 2 days between games. But they're not factoring the fact that we're getting in at 4:30. And why are we getting in at 4:30? Because there's still drug testing, so you can't leave early, because actually people don't pee quickly after games. So it's never really 2 full days. You're like a zombie on that first day. And the second day, it's about just getting your legs moving. I accept it. It's coming up again. I think in December, I think we play the Bristol-Häcken situation, 3 in 6 games again. But all I'm asking is, like, don't we want an English team to try and progress in Europe? Like, it's hard enough. And the rest of Europe look at us and think their league don't even help them. And I know Jonas made this point last year. Like, I think it's something we should seriously look at. And there's nothing I can do about it. I can't change it, because broadcasting say there's 2 games in between, therefore get on with it. But don't you think it's a little bizarre that we're the only team that's played on Wednesday, and we're the first team to play on Saturday, having played Sunday night away from home last week? Like, I don't know.
Fair point from Emma Hayes.
Absolutely. I think it's always been a theme, and she did go on to say it's not just women's football, it's men's football as well. And I think it's always been a theme that in England, the FA have not protected, or the schedulers have not protected the teams in Europe as much as maybe some other countries might. It's even the difference of a 24-hour, window is huge. Coming back, and as Emma Hayes, they were zombies when they came back on Thursday morning.
So was I.
Yeah, we were all zombies. But it's tough, and trying to do your recovery. You've got drug testing, you've got everything, and then you have to come home and readjust and be sleeping in different places, and it all accumulates. And I think if there is anything that organisations or associations can do to help protect players, she pointed to Millie Bright. She didn't even feature on the bench, and we were asking her about that, and if it was an injury, and she said no, it's purely a loading factor. If you look at Millie coming out of her knee injury towards the end of last season, she went to the World Cup, played every game at the World Cup, had maybe 10 days off, and then has played almost every game, I think, or if not every game for Chelsea this season. So she was like, she had to step in and protect her player. Otherwise, she's going to get hurt, and she needs to look after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Emma. She wanted it to be her clickbait headline, so we want to make sure that we actually put it out there. Elsewhere then on Sunday, Everton 2, Bristol 2. It sounds like this game had a bit of drama to it. I was keeping an eye on it while I was heading over to the game I was covering. And then it was an important one down the bottom of the table as well. Everton were on 4 and Bristol were on 3 before this game. And it sounds like Everton definitely had started the better. They scored early through Chiamaka, and it kind of appeared to be one-way traffic from the sounds of things in the early offings. But then Bristol grew into the game, started testing Brosnan, got a goal probably at the best time you could get a goal in a situation like that, which was in injury time of first half. So you're not going in at half time 1 down, you're going in 1-1, and suddenly it's a different kind of headspace you're in. And I'm sure it's the same for Everton. But to be fair, then Everton came back out, went ahead in the 57th minute through Finnegan. And as time ticked on, they probably thought they were going to come away with their first home win of the season. But Bristol again came back through Thestrup, scoring in the 82nd minute. And I think an important draw for Bristol. They would have wanted all 3 points, of course, but the fight and grit to come back twice. They're on 4 points at the bottom of the table now, but they're only 3 points away from 8th.
They're showing resilience, and they're scoring goals away from home, and that's the most important thing. And I think, yes, you always want the 3 points when you travel, especially travelling to a team who are struggling. But I do think if you can get at least a point on the road, that sets you up really nicely for that return leg when it comes round. Everton will be disappointed. I think there were, as you said, some really good bits of play. The Italian link-up between Galli and Piemonte was starting to click, I think, and she got her goal with Piemonte. And then you pointed out in pre-match the stat about the set pieces and Bristol City, and it was again...
That stat being Everton had only scored a goal from set piece. They hadn't scored any goals from open play, and that Bristol were a team that had conceded the most goals from set pieces.
And that second goal was, the second phase of a set piece, so it came in from a free kick, I think, from the left, and the initial effort hit the bar, cannoned off the bar, fell to Megan Finnegan, and she swept it home. But again, it points to the fact, and we saw it in Bristol's game against Arsenal, is that they probably need to tighten up on that second phase of clearances, because they're doing quite well in the first phase, but in the second phase they just seem to lose intensity or concentration. I don't know what it is.
Then we had Brighton 0, Arsenal 3. That kicked off at 2:00. I feel like the scoreline perhaps flattering Arsenal a little bit. It was 1-0 for much of the game. They scored early through Stina Ballerina Blackstenius. If you haven't seen that goal, she does a full pirouette with her first attempt in the box. Completely throws off the defenders who just watch her have a second go, and she scores. But yeah, they then had to wait until the 80th minute for the second goal and the 95th for the third. What are your thoughts on this one? Brighton have had a really tough block of games in this block. They've taken 4 points from their games against the Manchester sides. So they would have been confident going into this one. Yeah,
they stayed in it, and we know that they can defend pretty resolutely. I think Arsenal did well at trying to break down what they're good at. So I think actually it was really smart. And Tim Stillman wrote about this today in his piece for Arseblog. But the way that they work off each other, Russo and Blackstenius. Russo was playing the deeper role. Blackstenius was stretching the line. So that actually worked really well. Arsenal created 21 chances. So they were the dominant side, but they then did only get 4 of them on target. So that's a continuing issue, right?
Used up all of their goals against Leicester.
For Arsenal, but they got the win done in the end. I think there were some really interesting pieces of play. I think Victoria Pilova is having a hugely important season. She's been incredible in that deeper line role, and she said after the Leicester game last week that she prefers that central midfield deeper role, and I think you're seeing why. And she's starting to build that partnership with Cooney Cross as well in the absence of Walty and Little. So really important steps, I think, for Arsenal. I think Brighton will look at this block and think they've done pretty well. So while a 3-0 loss is disappointing for them, I think they will think that they've competed in every single game and they've got points where they shouldn't have got points. Well, you wouldn't expect them to have got points.
And I think Mel Phillips is quite realistic, and she speaks really well. She's very measured in her pre- and post-match comments. just want to point out as well, Russo, her last-ditch tackle, it is doing the rounds on social media. I think Barclays WSL have put it up. But, people talk a lot about she hasn't scored that many goals. And obviously this game she was playing a deeper role in that kind of 10 position. But there is a brilliant last-ditch tackle where it looked a certain goal for Brighton. And she just came out of nowhere and made a proper central defenders type tackle.
She is incredibly good defensively. I think last week that goal, was it last week? Where she allowed her marker to leave her. I think that was sort of not trademark Russo. I think she's very good. We know she's good aerially, and she's very good defensively. And it's a part of the game that I think is underrated for forward players. But to be able to have that in your sort of armoury, I think we'll talk about it with West Ham and Aston Villa later and Rachel Daly. It's a hugely beneficial thing to have, to be able to defend as a forward.
Yeah. Also a record crowd at the Broadfield Stadium. Something both managers were very complimentary about, which was great. Jonas Eidevall paying a lot of compliments to the fact that they'd managed to get this big crowd, but equally Mel Phillips complimenting what Arsenal have done in the way that they've built their foundation and their fans, and they're regularly selling out their away end seats, which is brilliant, but it made for an exciting and a noisy game.
I think I put it on Twitter this morning, and I didn't mean it in the way of competition. It shouldn't be. It's not about competition between
Take team loyalty out of it.
So it's not about competition for fan bases, but what Arsenal have done in the last 12 months is incredible in terms of the culture that they've built around the club, in terms of the crowds that we're seeing at the Emirates, the back-to-back crowds that we've seen this season, the away support, the fact that they've sold out every away allocation at the moment. I think they sold half of their Tottenham away allocation in half an hour, I was told. So, that's really impressive. They've built this culture where the club have really linked up with the fan groups, both official and unofficial. They're making songs, they're bringing the chants, and I think we were away with them last season on the Champions League, and you go to the meetups beforehand and see what was going on, and it was just a really friendly atmosphere where you could engage with each other and have a chat about the game and make new friendships. So I think as a case study, what Arsenal are doing, every club needs to look at that. Jonas he spoke earlier this season about Brighton, and he was asked in a press conference about whether the crowd at the Amex was disappointed. I think it was 8,000 or something, and he was like, Brighton building. And this time last year, the first game I was in charge, we got 8,000 at the Emirates, and now, or the opening game of last season, we got 8,000 at the Emirates, and now we're at Emirates, and now we're sort of
40,000,
getting 40,000 plus regularly. And he said it's a building process, you need to start somewhere. And he was like, Brighton are doing the work. They're trying to do the work to build both areas as a fan base.
Yeah, and I'd say on the flip side of, you'll have Arsenal fans saying we've always been leading the way, but, as Jonas touched on, I remember going to Champions League games midweek and there wouldn't be more than 10,000, it'd be below that. So it is something that's really shifted in the last couple of years, and that the marketing and commercial and everyone else behind the scenes have really put a lot of work into, and it is paying off.
It's understanding culture, and it's not relying on your badge to get you people through the door.
Yeah.
It's understanding that women's football attracts a very different audience at times to men's football. Yes, there are some men's football fans who carry over, but I think there was in one of the women's sports research pieces recently, it showed that a vast majority of people attending a women's game are new to the sport, and they felt that they didn't belong in the men's side of the sport. So you're tapping into a whole new audience, and it's really important to get the learnings about that, because they're going to behave in completely different ways to men's football.
Yeah, and also that 13 to 25, I think it is, demographic is traditionally one of the most difficult demographics to get into sport, and that's one of the most popular demographics in women's football. So it's really interesting. I hope I'm sure someone is out there doing research and a case study of some sort. Right, we're moving on to West Ham 2, Aston Villa 3. I was at this one. I had mistakenly thought this would be like a draw, maybe 0-0.
She never listens to me.
No, I do. I said that point, and then you said, and I'm giving you the credit, and if you're not careful, I'm not going to give you the credit. Sophie said on our live that she predicted it would be a wild one, and you were right. So I don't know why you give me those eyes. Like, I do not. I write this running order. I don't have to give you credit for this. West Ham definitely started the better team. Really impressed with how they started. First half was high intensity. It was. I was out of breath actually watching it. It was that kind of fast paced. Villa were not prepared for it. Kirsty Smith was having a lot of joy down the wing, down the left hand side. Adriana Leon was struggling, I think, managing her, and Leon did end up giving away the penalty that Asai slotted home that kind of got West Ham off the mark, and I thought they would build on that and maybe get another goal.
Can I just talk about them running straight towards you for the photo?
Yes, thank you. Viviane Asai and Emma Harries, really appreciate it. I think you're actually looking into my camera lens. So more players, do that please. So they went ahead. I kind of probably thought West Ham were going to get another one, but no. Anna Patton nodded home from... It was a corner. Rachel Daly sent the ball in off the corner, like second phase, and Anna Patton nodded at home. I think that's her first WSL goal, if I'm not mistaken. I think she may have scored in an FA Cup, but yes, first WSL goal. Went in 1-1 at the break, which I think West Ham would have been disappointed with, but it gave Villa a chance to reset. Second half was a bit scrappier. It was very stop-start with like injuries and fouls and stuff, so it felt like nobody really got any momentum, but I think Villa were the better in the beginning of that second half, and they went ahead through Leon, which is her first goal for Aston Villa, so she's delighted. Carla Ward says she was really happy to get that kind of, what is it, duck off her back or whatever it is, like, it's done now, she's got the goal. And then Lisa Evans came on, and Lisa Evans for West Ham just had different ideas. Like, she was like, I'm going to change this game. She was involved in everything, and she scored an absolute peach of a goal. Definitely one to look out for. And it looked like it was going to end in a draw, and kind of a breathless draw. But of course, Rachel Daly pops up right at the death. Daly's going to Daly in injury time. And I have to give credit to Maz Pacheco, because a ball was lofted in, and it was an awkward ball. It didn't look like it was going to cause too many problems for West Ham. Maz Pacheco kind of had to adjust herself to get anything on it, and she found Rachel Daly with the header, and Rachel Daly herself had to kind of adjust to get anything on it, and she absolutely rifled it home.
Absolute heck of a finish.
And then in injury time, with 5 minutes of injury time, for some reason we played 7 or 8, West Ham got a corner, Mackenzie Arnold went down. Jesus, I was stressed. I don't know how anyone else is feeling on the sideline, and I'm not like particularly invested in either side. And Rachel Daly pops up and clears off the line, and that is just
a fantastic clearance as well.
Peak Rachel Daly.
Because she had to get really down to get it off the line. It wasn't just like a header or anything. She literally had to bend down to make the clearance on the goal line, and I think that's what Rachel Daly brings to her side, right? And we were talking about it with Russo earlier, like having a forward who can defend well and defend resolutely and be that kind of player at the back that you need. It was fantastic from Daly.
And I think sometimes we don't consider the work that goes in to be that good at both ends of the pitch. And I asked Emma Hayes about Niamh Charles during the week, and that was something she touched on, is that you don't see the hard work that goes into, because Niamh Charles has started as a winger, she's had to build a defensive game. To be that good at both ends of the pitch is really impressive. Anyway, Rianne Skinner will be, and she was, disappointed that they hadn't come away from that game with at least a draw. So to come away, play like that and not come away with any points, she will be disappointed. Right, Leicester 1, Spurs 1. You were at this one, Soph. Talk us through it. Another draw. Leicester fast becoming one of your favourite teams to watch. Go on, you're allowed to wax lyrical about it. Go on.
They were actually, the first half was good, but I think the second half they faded quite drastically, and I think that was what Willie Kirk was worried about when I spoke to him after the game. It's kind of maintaining that performance, and he was a bit disappointed. He was like, yes, we stopped the losing run, so they got their first draw. They'd lost the last 2 and got their first draw, so that's important. But I think he was a bit disappointed with how his side dropped off. They were very good at the start of the game. They were pressing and man-for-man marking like we've seen them do, and they were getting through the Tottenham midfield. Hannah Kane was causing problems once again. Missy Goodwin had a really bright first half as well. They should have gone 1-0 ahead when I think it was Jutta Rantala had a really swerving shot that was tipped away by Becky Spencer, and I don't know how she did this, but Ashley Neville came in like from nowhere and acrobatically somehow got it away from Missy Goodwin, who was literally stood maybe 2 yards off the goal line to turn it home. Incredibly defending. They took the lead through Janice Kamen, the hosts, and it looked like they were going to push on from there. That was Kamen's second goal in as many games as well, so she's getting into form. But then Tottenham came back into it, and in the end, towards the end of the first half and in the second half, they kind of dominated possession. I think they created 19 chances with 11 on target.
Bloody hell.
So the stats are there, they're just not making it count. It was kind of interesting also. So Bizet got the equaliser in the second half. They will feel they should have won the game. But Martha Thomas was dropping a bit deeper. So she provided the pass for Bizet for the goal. But then when Ellie Brazil came on, she was playing that number 10 role, Martha Thomas, and Ellie Brazil was the lead striker. So I think he's testing out ways with Martha Thomas when she's not like firing into the back of the net.
And for when Beth England comes back.
How she could be influential around. I think, they'll be disappointed. That's 3 draws in the trot for Tottenham. And when you look at the stats that they're creating, it shouldn't be 3 draws in the trot. That's the problem, I think, is if you were pretty even games or if you were playing, really poorly, you'd be pretty happy with that. But because they were maintaining their unbeaten run, but they are creating and they're just not making it count at the moment. So
I'm also enjoying that Bizet-Thomas partnership. I saw flashes of it in the first game against Chelsea and I thought this could be really exciting. Anyway, on to the Manchester derby, which we had to watch back. At Old Trafford, a record crowd, a super match. What more could you want from a Manchester derby? City delivering United's first loss of the season. It now puts City above United in the table. A pen for United, Zalam scoring that, and then 2 goals, really quick succession for City, and suddenly the game had changed. Lauren Hemp's goal was an absolute peach, another one to look at. You're going to be spending your afternoon looking at all these goals. What did you make of this, Soph?
I think that United were poor. I think City were very good. Don't get me wrong, it's not to take credit away from them. I think they've come into this game under pressure. They've lost 2 games. And as was pointed out to Gareth Taylor, very clearly in the pre-match, no one really goes on to win the league after having lost 2 games. And he said they have to remain unbeaten for the rest of the season, which at this stage is a pretty tough ask.
Well, it's something they aim to do anyway every season. So.
No, but obviously, it's a tough ask. They have to. I think their press was really good. Chloe Kelly and Lauren Hemp are in incredible form at the moment. I think Hemp is in the form of her life. I think Kelly pretty much too. She's creating so much. She might not always get on the score sheet, but her creation and her drive is incredible. I think Man United just didn't have the answers. I still don't understand why he plays Jay-Z down the wing and Mallard down the wing and Jay-Z down the centre. I don't really get that. I think they were a bit off in their ball control and just not quite on it in terms of their slickness.
The Jay-Z Mallard thing you mentioned as well, though, when we were watching it, at one point I was like, has Jay-Z gone out to the right? And it was when United were looking really threatening. And you were like, oh, actually, it looks like Mallard central. But I think it was just there had been a passage of play and they'd split and they just went back to the way Jay-Z went back into the centre.
Yeah, so I don't really understand that. I think Mary Earps seems to be being criticised for the third goal. And I'm not so sure what she could have done about that. Yes, she maybe hesitated a bit, but
it wasn't the best distribution.
It was the back pass that was a problem.
Letizia should have turned out into the space and she hesitated and then sent a bad back pass. But Earps' distribution wasn't brilliant yesterday. She made some great saves though, obviously unreal shot stopper, and we're used to her having good distribution, but yesterday her distribution wasn't brilliant.
I think but I do think it will be a huge disappointment for Mark Skinner. You could tell in his post-match comments. He knew they weren't at the races today, and when you get in a record crowd like that, you want to be performing to your best, and they just didn't get up to the levels that they can be.
But it was an entertaining and excellent Manchester derby, so there's that, at least. So the table currently, Chelsea are top of the table on 19 points, Arsenal behind them in second on 16, Man City are on third on 13, and behind them is United on 12, and Spurs are also on 12. Bristol are at the bottom on 4 points, West Ham are down there too, but they have a better goal difference, and Everton are on 5 points and Villa on 6, so it's really close down there as well. To the Championship, which has returned to its bonkers best results. They are as follows: Charlton 1, Sunderland 1, Birmingham 3, Durham 1, Palace 3, Southampton 4, Lewis 2, London City Lionesses 1, Watford 1, Sheffield 3. So the table looks like this. We've got Charlton on top with 22 points. Sunderland are also on 22 points in second. Southampton are in third on 21 points. Palace are in fourth on 20, but they have a game in hand. And Birmingham are in fifth, also on 20 points. So 3 points separating first and fifth, which is wild. And then down the bottom, Watford are propping up the table on 5 points and Lewis are above on 7, and it's Reading just above the drop line on 10.
Absolutely crucial win for Lewis against a team they probably wouldn't be expected to win against. I think they have struggled this season. In recent games that I've seen, the one against Charlton, they competed pretty well, and I still have huge doubts about that penalty. So I think their performances have probably been improving, but they haven't been able to get the victory, and this was a big one. I mean, to try and mount some form, they, 2 go down this season.
Yeah.
So they need to get out of that drop zone. And luckily for them, it is still pretty close at the bottom, but they need to start picking up points. Otherwise, it's going to become a problem. I
know we're struggling, obviously, to predict who's going to win it, but I think we're seeing a bit more of a pull away now because those top 5 that we mentioned are like a good bit above.
They're a top 5. Yeah. They're not going to be.
And it's, I think, one of those top 5 that are going to win it. Right, here we go. Finally, have you thought of it? I hope you've thought of it. Sophie's standout moment of the week is...
I'm going to go with Janina Leitzig's triple save against Tottenham. In 20 seconds, she pulled off 3 stunning saves, and she was absolutely crucial to them maintaining that point. So I'm going to go with that because, goalkeepers. Kudos to the goalkeepers.
You said she had to have a little sit down afterwards, didn't you?
Yeah. And then if I'm going to do a backup, it's going to be Alessia Russo's sliding tackle.
That's great. That was going to be mine later on today. So thanks for stealing that. And once again, having 2 when you're supposed to have 1. We will get there eventually one day.
Never.
Coming up this week, there are Conti Cup games, of course, but we are still on the Champions League trail.
I've got another one.
Oh, for God's sake.
Can I do one more?
You're literally interrupting my Champions League chat. Go on.
Can I do one more?
Go on.
Chloe Kelly's celebrations at Old Trafford.
You're going to light up our mentions now. People are not going to be happy with that.
But it's what you
love
want. A derby at Old Trafford, big crowd. You've got to be delighted you're winning against your city rivals, and you've got to give it a bit.
I love it. Her post as well on Instagram.
And the little ear cuff and everything.
Yeah, she was like, not a lot of love at OT, which I thought was lovely. Anyway, back to what I was saying before I was rudely interrupted. So as I said, we are on the Champions League trail. We're covering Brann versus Slavia Praha on Wednesday, so we're heading to Bergen in Norway tomorrow evening. Back Thursday morning for Chelsea versus Paris FC. At Stamford Bridge. Paris FC have not gotten off to the best start. They lost to Hacken 2-0. What happened, Paris? We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. No, but this is going to be a good one. I'm excited. And you got to chat to Nnadozie, goalkeeper, ahead of this game. So here's what she had to say.
I was just going to ask, you pulled off some really strong results in qualifying for the Champions League to get to the group stage. Can you talk to me about those games against, Arsenal, against Wolfsburg, and how that really improved you as a team and what the main lessons were?
I think it improved us a lot. We've been working so hard for so many months to get to this stage, and we're happy. We knew what we wanted and we worked hard for it, though it wasn't easy to beat Arsenal and Wolfsburg because these 2 teams are one of the biggest teams in the world and we respect them so much. So we were so happy to win them. It wasn't easy. They played very well, but at the end we were happy to get those wins.
And it's a big game next week at Stamford Bridge. You played in plenty of big stadiums at this now. How much are you looking forward to being at Stamford Bridge and playing Chelsea?
For me personally, it's a dream come true. For me, playing in the Champions League, playing against Chelsea, it's a really big thing for us and even the team also. It's not going to be an easy game. We lost our last game and Chelsea, it was a draw for them. So it's going to be so intense, So Chelsea would want to win, Barry FC would want to win. So we just have to, keep working hard, approach the game with a good mentality. And we hope at the end of the game we'll try to, make the team proud.
All right. Yes, definitely looking forward to that one. And I promise this time we will take you with us unless I get sick again, which would just be really unlucky. But we'll have a contingency plan. There'll be a solo Soph episode.
Will there?
There will if it has to be. But no doubt another jam-packed episode next week. So make sure you subscribe. Give us a like in the comments as well. If there's anything you want to touch on, give us your opinion. We'd love to hear from you. But until then, we'll see you next week.